All right, so welcome back to another lesson here in our 10-week online art course. And I'm very excited for us today. We are going to be doing this really fun little dragonfly. And this one's really fun, especially if you would like to shift which colors of paint that maybe you're using. Maybe you've been running out of blue for some reason. We do like blue, and this would be a great way for us to shift, get some other colors in use, and make sure that we're trying lots of different things. So I love the red and orange of this background. Super, super fun. So the materials we're going to need a large brush for our background. And we are going to, let's see here, we're also going to be using kind of more of a medium flat brush for just some parts, maybe not a lot. And then we'll also need kind of more of a round brush. So nothing different than what we've been using. This one is just going to be using brushes. We are also going to use some chalk. This will help us put in some lines to guide where we're doing shapes and like the wings and the body, give us more confidence on all of that. So first things first, let's go ahead and get out some red. Get some red out. Don't need tons. We also need some yellow. Red and yellow out there. And I might even snag just a little bit of white. White could help me get it a little bit lighter over on the edge over here, and maybe make sure that it's not looking just too bright. It can help tone down that yellow a little bit. I'm going to switch to my example demonstration canvas right now. So I'm going to grab my water. We always have our water. Nice and ready. I'll stick mine right there. And I'm going to get my larger brush. I'm going to go ahead and dip that in the water, drag off the edge like we always do, get it primed and ready. And what we're going to do, as you can see from our examples, we're going to start kind of more of a reddish tone, reddish orange, and then we're going to move our way and just kind of get lighter and lighter. So you'll see that we'll grab red at the beginning, and then we probably won't be grabbing that much red as we keep moving, because the red will still stay in our brush, but we want it to be less and less and less as we move across the canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and grab just some straight red, I think, right now. And I'm going to go ahead and do a first kind of streak line up and down. Now, if I didn't grab enough, that's where it gets to where it won't cover. Remember, this first layer always needs a decent amount of paint to cover it. So maybe I've really established this nice, good red line. And now I'm going to do red and grab some yellow at the same time. So I've got red and yellow on my paintbrush, same time. I'm going to come beside and I'm going to start blending that. And as you can see, you might be able to see, it still looks pretty dark. Still looks pretty dark, but it's starting to shift a little more orange. And that's what I want. This time I'm going to go back and just grab yellow with still some red in my brush. And I'm going to start streaking that down there. Now, as I push with my brush, I'm still pushing in some of the red that was left in my brush. And that is helping me get kind of that darker orange color. So this is where it is helpful to have a little more pressure. I'm going to grab some more yellow. Yep. Maybe if my red is completely running out. By about halfway is when I want to start getting more yellow. So just going to streak up and down with that motion. Kind of makes a funny sound as you go up and down the canvas. So now as I'm kind of at this halfway point, I'm going to try to shift more into this orangey yellow color. And this time I might grab I'm going to grab a little bit of white, a little bit of white to help tone down, because I don't want that yellow, like I said, to be too bright. I want it to still be kind of controlled and muted, maybe a little bit. So I don't want to see that it's white. I just want to see that it's not just the plain yellow and just too strong. So a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to streak, keep going. Now you see I haven't rinsed out my brush, so I'm still seeing some red left on my brush, and that's fine. We're going to use that to still maintain and kind of get that orangey shade to go all the way across. So every time I'm grabbing some yellow, I know that I'll probably have a little bit of that red still mixing in. That's okay. So got more yellow. We end up using a lot more yellow here. I'll just all the way across. And just finish that out with kind of more of that yellow. Again, if I push just a little more with my brush, I can kind of squeeze a little more of that red out if I want to see more orange shades. There we go. So we kind of have this transition from our darker red kind of into the orange and into the yellows. And didn't have to rinse our brush at all this whole time. Now, if you're wanting to go around your edges, we sometimes like to do that to try to finish it off. You could do like just a medium orange mix that could probably blend well for the whole painting. So again, I haven't even rinsed my brush. If you want to do it where it even seems like this color is wrapping all the way around, you can do that as well. But finishing off that edge really, when you're done with the painting, really makes it seem nice and done. So there's my first finished edge versus just the blank one. So we're gonna finish up the edge and we'll be right back after I check in and see how everyone is doing. All right, it looks like all of us have had a chance to go around the edges of our painting, and I have gone ahead and rinsed out my large brush. I do not need this anymore, so I don't want that to dry. This is a good time to make sure rinse that out and set that aside. This is where we need to actually pick up our chalk. We're going to use chalk. It's one of my favorite tools to help kind of put some lines in there to help guide us where we're going to be doing the rest of this painting. I will say you do need to make sure that it is fairly dry before you use chalk. Chalk trying to draw on a wet surface won't work very well. So if yours is still a little damp, you may need to give yourself just a little more time, but it's okay to have it just slightly. It just may not show all the way. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to do some outline of where the body is going. We're going to draw, and the first thing we're going to do is we're actually just going to draw a diagonal line. And that's going to show that the space and the line of where the body is going, where we're going to start, where we're going to stop, and how the body is going to be built on this line. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to come down here about three fingers. Again, mine is an 8x10 canvas, so if yours is a little bit larger, you could take up a little more space, but we want to have some space. Yeah. So I'm going to start my line about here in this kind of quarter of the painting, and I'm going to come all the way down to about here, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. And actually, if you look, I may have not done enough of an angle, and that's okay. If you want to have yours more tilted. But just have a line. And now we're going to be drawing some shapes onto the line of what our dragonfly looks. And you see, if you kind of break up our dragonfly, he's got lots of different shapes to him, okay? The top part right here, he actually has, and all of these shapes, we're gonna have the line go right in between. So we're gonna do a little box right here. That's our first little one. So I've got a little box for the top part of the dragonfly. And then there's another little kind of rectangle under him. So I've got a little box and I've got a little rectangle. You see how the line is going in between, intersecting that. Then I'm going to start doing kind of these little swoop, like ovals for his body, for his tail. So on that, my example, it looks like I have about 4 on there. So I'm going to just go up and down, and same on the other side. 1, can you see that? I want to make sure. I know sometimes the chalk doesn't try to show it very well, and maybe it's not quite, maybe it's too big. And that's the great thing about chalk. If I go too much, I can always go back and erase it. So I went through and I just, as you saw, it was kind of like just one little hump, and I just did a mirror image of it all the way down to give myself 4. This bottom one not being bigger than the top one. Trying to maybe make it a little bit smaller as it goes down. So those are kind of the base shapes of our dragonfly. Now, this is not going to be exactly where we paint everything. It's just giving us a frame of reference, okay, which is really, really nice. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, no, we'll do that after. We'll chalk in the wings after we've worked a little bit more on the body, okay? And maybe as we're painting in some stuff, we shift some things. So we want to go ahead and maybe do the body first before we do that, but we will reach for our chalk to get our wings in. So to do the color of the body, we're doing green. So we will actually be using blue, but we do not need very much. Blue is a very strong color. We need just a little dot of it, and we'll use some of our yellow. Now I used all of my yellow to do the background, so I'll have to put some fresh yellow out. But with blue, I'm not going to need to use too much. So I'll put that blue down there, and I'll get some fresh yellow. Got that. And this is where I think I'm going to want to pick up kind of my medium flat brush. This is going to give me a chance to, I really like using this brush because it's got that flat edge, especially if wanting to go around a curve, right, for the body. And then I can use it to fill it in if I'm wanting to do those straight lines that are the body part. Then I've got that as well. So I'm going to grab my medium brush, dip that in water. We're all going to do that, actually, not just me. You guys are doing this too. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to mix my green color. Now our first green color, we're going to do like 3 different shades of green as we do this, and we'll go lighter and lighter, and that'll give us from our shadow to our highlight. And this first base green is kind of darker. So I'm going to grab some blue, got a decent amount of blue, but not too much. And I'm going to grab some yellow and start to mix and get kind of this darker green. You see how my green is, and I'm only doing it on this side of the yellow. This side is all nice and still clean over there, but I'm going to mix this dark green. There we go. And then I'm going to follow the guidelines that I did on with my chalk. So I'm going to just go in And I'm going to now, I think my chalk went a little wide, so I'm choosing to actually go in a little smaller than my chalk, which is fine. I'll get to be able to erase my chalk when I'm done. So I'm looking at it going, I went a little too much. This is where I can still edit, and then I'm going to fill it in. So there's kind of that first little part, and there's going to be where I can kind of round it a little bit at the top to give it a little different shape, but it's still that basic shape. Then there's actually not really a space, but kind of it kind of connects. And then the other part of the body is this longer little section, right? And I'm going to still using that chalk line and my green and just come through. I'm leaving a little space in between. You can kind of see they're kind of just barely connected, but I can still see they're two different sections. You see that? So there's still two different sections, and that will help me make sure it doesn't look like just one big shape. And now I'm going to go in and follow the curves that we did and fill that all the way in. So now it's going to look like stacked ovals because we already did the work of doing the outline. So I really like I said, I like using this brush because I can set it down and I can just draw a nice line, curve it, and then I can use the wide part to fill it in. And that's what we're doing. So just follow that, making sure that these are connected, right? They're not floating away from each other. Now, if you also notice that your chalk will also start to dry out your brush some. It's a drying agent. That's the only downside to chalk. So you may need to go and grab some extra paint if you start running dry right there. And then this right here, that kind of connects with just like this little part right there. But everything's connected, but they kind of have a interesting shapes. This is probably not fully anatomically correct for a dragonfly, but it works. And people will look at it and they'll know what you're meaning. Right. I'm rinsing my brush just because it was getting a little messy. And I think this will be a good time actually for us to work on the wings. Working on the wings. So like I said before, we were waiting to kind of do some of these shapes because I want to make sure that we're attaching the wings at the right spot. So the wings actually are attached between our square and our rectangle. They're attached kind of that space that we were trying to leave, just so that we know that that's where everything's coming out. So I'm going to grab my chalk again and get ready to draw some lines. And the great thing about these wings is because we're so close to them, they don't have to be exact. They're actually going to be kind of going off of the canvas. And I love being able to do close perspective because then they don't have to be exactly even. They don't have to be precise. They're still giving the idea of a wing, but they don't have to. If one is slightly bigger than the other, it's okay. So I'm going to come to this point over here, and I'm going to draw kind of a sweeping arc line. It's going to go right off the canvas, right there. And then the other side of that is just going off right like that. So that's my first wing. My second one, they're going to start again at the same place. This one's going to come down. And then this one will swoop around. So maybe yours stays on, maybe it goes off. Looks like this time mine is slightly falling off of the canvas. That's absolutely fine. These wings are skinnier than butterfly wings. So that's one of the things that you do want to think about, whereas butterfly wings, we go a little bit wider. These are staying a little more skinny because they're just two skinny little sets. All right, and then on the other side, I'm going to start again in between my square and my rectangle, and I'm going to do a line going up, swoop, another swoop to connect. See how that one's going off of my canvas as well. I'm only getting part of that wing. And then this one, I'm going to, and they almost kind of touch for a little while, as you see. They're really, really close. So this next one, I kind of follow the other one up, and then it just kind of goes to the side just a little bit near the end. So that one's a little more, again, this one's, I think all of mine went off of the canvas this time, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. Again, if you really, really don't like something, here's what you do. You take a rag that you've got there. You can either wet it or you don't even have to, and you go ahead and you just rub and get rid of that chalk line, and you can redo it. So that is very easy. Again, one of the reasons I love having that tool of the chalk. So now you can see we've got the shapes of our wings. While we've got the shapes in here, let's go ahead and actually start putting in the outline of that. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my round brush. So we need our round brush now, the one that's kind of comes to a point. This brush is always very handy to do lines with. The harder you press, the thicker your line will be. The lighter your pressure is, the skinnier your line will be. So we're going to, of course, I'm going to dip it in water, get it ready. If you still have some white paint out, we're going to be using that. If you need to put out some more white paint, just need to put out just a little bit. Don't put out way too much. I don't want you to waste any paint unnecessarily. So what we're going to just start out by doing is taking the white, and we're going to just outline. Actually, is it white? Actually, it looks like I did a light blue. So actually, if we still got a little bit of blue, let's grab a little blue with our white, and we're going to just do an outline of those wings in a light blue. We do use some white to fill in the wings later, but we're just going to do a light blue line right over top of the chalk. Now again, when you're painting right over the chalk line, that your paintbrush is going to suddenly look like it is dying of thirst. And you'll have to go back and grab some more paint kind of regularly, because the chalk will try to see, mine's already, as I get near the very end, it's going, I don't have any more paint, I'm so thirsty. It's because we're giving it chalk and it doesn't like it as much. So I'm just kind of grabbing a little white, a little blue, and then just going onto the wing. So it looks like it's white and blue right now, but that's just the blue right over top of our white chalk outline. So we're just going to do a nice little outline. What's great about us focusing on the wings right now is that any part that we did on the body of the dragonfly is now dry, and we'll move to that next. So we'll be bouncing around. If you're trying to do a nice thin line, you're trying to keep your paint just the very edge and the tip of your brush. And that's why it's going to start to seem like you're running out of paint. If you press down harder, you'll do a thicker line, and that's fine if that's what you want, no problem. But that's also why I keep grabbing more paint. It's because if I'm only using the very tip of my brush, just the very tip, then that's why it's drying it out so quickly. So getting to the end here, you see that my keep dipping in. I don't regret using chalk at all, even though it does this to us, because it gives me the confidence with my brush to put in the lines that I want. So I'm going to rinse out the chalk and and the paint that we've done. And now we're going to bounce back to our body. I see some of the chalk is starting to even accumulate. So with the body, I want to mix now another color of green, and we're going to do kind of more of a medium to light green. All right, so I still have my blue out. I still have my yellow. I don't mind mixing on this side because obviously we've already done green. So I only need just some blue. Blue is very, very strong. And now I'm going to grab some yellow, and I want it to get a little bit, a decent amount lighter than what we did. So actually I might have even grabbed too much blue, which is kind of great if you're running out of blue and you need to do that. So I can see that my original shade was darker down here. I want to get it lighter, and to get it lighter is I'm going to keep grabbing more yellow. I'm going to start seeing that it's getting to this lighter shade. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back on the body and we're going to build in a new color, but we want to leave some of the original color that we have, our base color, because we want that to be our shadow. And this is where it's also important for us to think about where's our light coming from. So for this dragonfly, you can look at the example. All of the light is hitting the dragonfly from this side, from the dragonfly. If you're looking at it, the dragonfly is left. So the right side is all in shadow. So the right side's in shadow. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, but we're going to make sure, we're going to be going over the body, but we're going to make sure that there is still some of this darker part left and visible on the right side of each section, leaving that shadow. So I'm going to take my round brush and I'm going to come up here to this square, and I'm not going to do the whole square. I'm going to leave, you can see, I'm going to leave almost a streak of that darker blue or darker green still there. So you can see I'm filling this in, and it is lighter. You see that? But I'm not going to do that part. Just like I'm going to come here, almost make a line right there, leave that darker right there, and fill this part in with the lighter color. If you're not seeing as much of a difference, if it's not quite light enough, that's where you might need to, we may even need to grab maybe even just a smidge of white to go into our green if you're not seeing a much difference from your original color. Yeah, I ended up having to grab just a little bit of white to make it lighter. So I will, sometimes just as you mix it, you have to just kind of see, and when you paint, you're like, well, that's not as light as I wanted it to be. That's okay. So you can see there's a lighter, almost like a lighter square, and then there's kind of that shadow still there. And we're going to do the same thing for our little round parts of our body. I'm going to do that same shape, that rounded shape, and make sure it's light all the way to the edge of the left side, but I'm going to leave that darker part right there. This is also giving us another layer of paint if you felt like your original green didn't really cover very well. Now this is how we're making sure by doing a second coat on part of it. And so I'm going through, and you can see I'm leaving part of the darker part exposed. And we're just going over top. go. So now we kind of have our second coat and coloring for the body. I'm going to rinse out my brush. Now, as that dries, we're going to bounce back to the wings, and I'm going to double check and make sure everyone is up to speed before we move on to that next section. All right, so we have double checked and made sure that we're all ready, and I've rinsed out my brush just because I didn't want it to dry, but we're going to go ahead and grab our rounded brush again, and we're going to work on filling in our wings. Now, one of the great fun things about making it the wings, so we're trying to make something that's looking translucent. So we're going to try to be as delicate as we can with some of this pressure. We want to kind of see through. As you see, there's kind of this grid pattern that we're going to be putting in with some white. So my brush dried out, so I'm going to go ahead and prime that back again and get it moist. And I want to get some white paint on my brush. Now, I'm not going to get a lot because honestly, I don't want it to be too solid. I kind of want it to be a little streaky. You know, sometimes we fight against it streaking because we don't have a lot, but that streaking part and kind of almost being able to see through it is going to still give that illusion that we're trying to do about these wings. So I've got a little bit of white on the brush, and I'm going to come over here to one of the wings that we have. And we're going to start, and I'm going to come over here to the corner and maybe just up a little bit, and I'm going to do just like a little rounded diagonal line. Do you see how it's kind of, everything's kind of curved because we're trying to say this curve. So I'm going to kind of come here, line, curved line, curved line. See how those are curved lines right there? Going from one side of the wing to the other. And then I'm going to come on the other side and do another curved line to where they kind of crisscross. You see that? So that's and see, like I said, I'm kind of making it, I don't care that it's kind of see-through right there. I don't want it to be completely solid. So I'm going to crisscross this. It's okay if it gets a little solid in places too. Maybe that's where the light's hitting it. But I'm going to crisscross and do this crisscross pattern on each of the wings. And that is, we're telling kind of the story that there is something there, but you can kind of see through it, you know, maybe coming in even with some lighter little streaks to kind of fill it in. And see how they're kind of more streaky. And that's given that story of this transparent wing. So I'm going to come back over to this wing, and I'm going to go through, and I'm going to just do these curved lines from one side and come back and curve some more the other way. And again, I'm making it, if my brush is drying out, that's fine. I kind of like that, maybe a couple little extra. So we're going to do that for each wing. As you see, I'm going back and getting more paint because I'm just getting the bare minimum for each wing because I want it still kind of dry and kind of streaky as I go across. But you can still see it. We can still see, and we're just telling a story of a see-through item with stuff that we actually can see. Maybe a couple little extra streaks in there because that kind of breaks up that super grid pattern. Our eye likes patterns, but sometimes it can also dance in front of our eyes and they don't like it as much. So we can use this grid pattern as our base, but then maybe come back in with a couple little extra streaks there and fill that in. There we go. Yeah. I'm gonna rinse out my brush. If I look and see, and I rinsed it out because it was starting to, the white was starting to dry. If I want to look and see, and maybe I do want to do a couple of extra little lines. Like I said, to break up that grid pattern, but the grid pattern is a great tool. Maybe I just do a couple of extra, almost like light is hitting the wing. There we go. All right. I think that is enough for mine. And I always love to demonstrate that even though I painted that original painting and I'm doing this one, they are never exactly alike. It is still just kind of going off of the same feel and the same technique, but maybe it's a different shape. Maybe I'm in a different mood today. Maybe I'm having stronger pressure, lighter pressure. It's fine. So there's not a mistake that I made. It's just more, how's it going today? Sometimes art is a great reflection of how you're feeling. If you're stressed, maybe you put a little extra pressure into it, or you're focused so much on the details that it can make you feel tense, but we shouldn't. We need to be able to relax into this. All right, the next thing we're actually are going to do is we're going to go back to the body and add some more highlight green. So I've been mixing lots of different greens kind of over here. So this time I'm not going to even grab blue. I want to start with the lighter green. If I still had it, I want to grab that and a bunch of yellow. I want to really get that, and maybe some more white. And I want to really, really get a very light, almost a yellow green. So if it's looking too green or too much like the ones you've already done before, this is where I'm going to grab some white. See, look how nice and light that is. You can see we've got our different shades already right here, but our goal is not to paint our plate, it's to paint our painting. So don't leave all the color on the plate. Make sure we do this over here. The other thing that we're going to start to actually put in a little bit more shape into the body up here. If you see on the example, this middle rectangle actually is more 3 little segmented sections of the body. So this is going to be a great opportunity for us to kind of put in a little more of the detail of that. Also the top part, even though we kind of did square, has a little bit of rounding to it. We can use this lighter color to get some of more of those details. So I'm going to get this light color right here. And now again, we're going to just do more kind of on this side of the dragonfly. We're going to keep that right side still having that shadow. So this time I'm going to kind of do this curved, rounded part right there. And then here, I'm going to do 1, 2, and then 3. As you can see, I've got I can still see the color in between, like my base color. And these are almost like little rectangles within our rectangle. It's giving us some more dimension, right? And then here, I'm going to make sure and do it on the outside edge and not more than like the middle of this. So almost like they're cut in half, where we drew the line going down and curved. Now it looks really strange, even to me at first, when you add such a dramatic highlight and change, but that will start to blend in even as we add other details. So I'm gonna rinse out my brush, but you can probably start to see now the changing of our darkest, medium, and then our light, and then we'll go back in with a distinct white highlight. So we're gonna do that. It's starting to actually shape up. We really don't have much else left. We're gonna be putting out some black because we do need to put in technically right now our dragonfly has no head. Or has no place to put eyes, so that'll make it more difficult to fly around. And we need to give it some legs to be able to land on things. So, but all of these we're starting to build that different parts. So while that body is drying, I am going to grab the black. Now, we're talking you don't need very much at all, not at all. Black is a very strong color. I even, with that small dot, well, 2 small dots, but this small dot might have even put out too much. You can always put out more. As it is right now, I already see that I had too much blue. So it's okay. Paint management is another skill that you start learning more as you do art. All right, so I've rinsed out my brush. I'm gonna grab just solid black right here. And what I'm going to do is we're going to be putting in the rounded head part of the dragonfly. It is kind of a rounded button shape. It goes slightly the same height, width, maybe a little bit bigger than our top square, but that's kind of our guide. If you want to go from one corner, basically go up and around to the other corner. That's a great beginning part of the dragonfly's head. It can go just slightly a little bit wider than that, but that is the best guide that I've found because we already have that shape, so it's just attaching a half circle to the top of the body, and then we're just going to fill that in with solid black. So that is that. Like I said, if you want to, my first example, it went out a little bit wider, but it also does not go out like, it's not very big. It's not huge on the body, right? It's all still kind of compact and in a row. So it can kind of stick out just slightly bigger, but just some black right there. And then we need to add some legs. So also with our black, I'm going to do some legs. This is an insect. It has 6 legs. An arachnid or a spider has 8 legs. So we only need to try to put 6 legs in. So that's pretty easy. We're going to do 2 going forward, and then we'll do one going forward on each side, and then 2 going back on either side on the back. So this leg is attached kind of like right here where the wing is. I'm going to do touch my brush and then just swoop it up. To get it to that skinnier point right there is where I start getting lighter and lighter with my pressure and just kind of lift up my brush and away from the canvas. And then I just do the same thing on the other side, trying to keep them more even-ish on their length, but that is all good. We'll do another one at the base of this wing, and we'll swoop that down. This side right here. So we've got 4 legs now. We got to be able to stick in 2 more. This one's going to be attached in the middle, kind of like attached to the mid part of that rectangle part of the body. And we'll do those going down as well, but it's attached to a different spot, not where the wings are. See, that's why we didn't need a lot of black, but we're just gonna go ahead and rinse out our brush. So we should have 6 legs and a head now. That's starting to look more like a dragonfly. Look at that. So I'm gonna double check on how everyone's doing, and then we'll move on to our last few steps. All right, so we are going to finish up with just a few little details. I'm super excited because you can start to see we're really, really close to the end. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go in with some highlights right now on the body of our dragonfly. My head is still drying, so I want to make sure this is not the right time for me to paint the eyes in, so I'm going to save that. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to grab with my brush right here just some white. And when we go through with these highlights, it's just going to be little touches of white. I think I've still got a little green right here. I could grab a little green, but really it's mainly white. And we're going to just touch on the very left side, the highlight of where the light is hitting the body. So I'm going to come here, and you notice we've kind of been creeping more and more on this side and doing more paint. Well, this is going to just get a little streak of white right there. And then I'm going to go down, and I've got these 3 sections. I'll do one little bit right there, a little bit right there, and a tiny bit there. You can see where I'm still in those segments that we created with a lighter color. Now on here, I'm going to just do a streak, and this one's kind of more near just kind of the top of kind of that oval shape. And I just kind of take it from the top and curve it and kind of stop it almost about halfway down. But I'm creating, as you can see, the highlight is starting to really make everything kind of pop right there. So I kind of just add that little bit of white. What's interesting is our eye, even though we've just added white, we know that the dragonfly is green, even though there is white that's now added, because our eye interprets light all the time with shadows and light. So we disregard the light color. We know that this darkest color is a shadow, and we just concentrate on the main color. So that's the trick, that as an artist we are getting to play with light with the way that we're demonstrating that. I'm going to rinse out my brush, see a couple more things we're going to add. I think the black on mine is done, so I'm going to come and grab some green. The eye is a green color, and I'm going to just grab kind of whatever medium to light color green that I still already had mixed. And I'm going to just add two round dots. The eyes kind of come closer towards the front. We may have to do a couple little coats on this because covering up black is always tougher. But it's just two round dots, that medium color, and then we'll come back with maybe a highlight in just a sec. Maybe. Again, this is, you could spend probably a lot of time trying to layer the eyes just like we did the body. So I've got those right there. I might go back in with just a little highlight, but the main thing is that the eyes are kind of together. You see how they're almost to the very edge right here. They're not in the very center. They're more near the front of the head. All right, I've rinsed out my brush because the next thing I'm going to do is just grab some black on the very tip of my brush. I don't need a lot. We're just going to add just some movement lines. So you can see in my example, there's actually just kind of some different black streaks of lines, and that's just kind of showing that this dragonfly is in motion. And sometimes we can use lines to help us tell the story of motion as well as light. So I'm going to do just some light little streaks kind of going around You see that kind of going around, like this is wind that's curving around that wing. Maybe there's one right there, right? Maybe there's just a little one going up top. And the reason I'm grabbing more paint is because, again, kind of like with the wings, I was not wanting to get a lot of paint because I want it to be kind of lighter and streakier. Maybe I'll do one there. Oh, and I'm starting to run out of paint. That's okay. That means I don't have to worry about it getting too dark. And maybe we've got a couple little lines that kind of break up. That also helps to break up just this empty space that we had left, right? So that's just some little extra detail. And again, if you want to, the very last thing we can go back is just to go with just a very light white. And I'm just going to add a little lighter part on the eye, on that left side, because we've been making it shiny and lighter on the left side this whole time. And so it just adds just a little bit, but now we are done. I will admit, so right now I still see some chalk lines on mine. What you can do is with a wet, clean brush, you can go around, and after that paint has dried, you can just follow and almost just kind of erase it with a moist brush, or you can use a rag. That's a great way to just go ahead and do that. I will say, make sure that your paint is dry, or else you might accidentally smear it. But you can go around our wings, right? We had the chalk on our wings. It's kind of satisfying to be able to just make that disappear, and then no one knows that chalk was there. All right, I am so excited that you got to join me today to do this fun dragonfly, and I hope that you really enjoyed it. We did a lot of talking about light, about the layers of our colors, about trying to make something that's see-through but visible on a painting, and I think that we had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you next time.